Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. We're going to be getting started with Azure OpenAI and Langflow today. I'm really excited to have you, and thanks for learning with us. Now, a few prerequisites out there, and we've got those links directly in the chat for you. Please make sure you have a DataStax Astra account. You can sign up either via Azure Marketplace or directly on DataStax Astra. Make sure you also have access to Azure AI Foundry, where we're going to be spinning up our foundation and embedding models. And then, of course, having the workshop material up so you can walk through and have a play-by-play alongside me. And if you would like, you can have the presentation slides as well, so you don't have to furiously take notes while we're learning together. So I will give you all a moment to do that. Let us know if you have any issues. This is our agenda today. It's going to be pretty quick. I'm going to run through an introduction. We're going to have a few minutes for your workshop setup. Pretty much it's just making sure you have access to those links and that you're logged in. Then we'll run through the workshop in about 35 minutes. We'll have a survey, which I highly request that you guys fill out the survey, because that's what allows us to continue to do these free workshops live. And we'd love to take your feedback on how we can do this workshop better, easier for future attendees. And then finally, we're going to have time for Q&A. And if there's enough questions or too many questions, I'm happy to stay on a little extra for a little extra time. All right, well, while you guys are getting your workshop material together, I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Greg Petrosian. I lead our global partnership with Microsoft here at DataStax. I'm a technologist. I love working with data communities, and I've been a staunch supporter of the data community here in Portland, Oregon, where I'm located. I lead the Portland Microsoft user groups, including Azure, Power Platform, Fabric. You can also find me teaching on the evenings at Willamette University on sales engineering. I have a long history of consulting within the Microsoft ecosystem. And frankly, I just love technology, and it's been exciting to get to help individuals like yourself ramp up on GenAI and learning how to build GenAI applications. A little bit about us at DataStax. We have been powering mission-critical applications across every industry for over a decade. Where we shine is in large scale, actually massive scale applications. And we have brought that GenAI experience at that massive scale to organizations that want to innovate with GenAI. Our customers' AI app journey is typically in two places, and they're typically starting with retrieval-augmented generation, that chat experience which we have all experienced and learned via ChatGPT, and then taking it a step further with AI agents once they feel comfortable and have great accuracy with what's called retrieval-augmented generation, or RAG. And that's what we're going to be spending a lot of today on, is learning how retrieval-augmented generation works. Now, where do organizations struggle? Probably with this H word called hallucinations. I'm sure you've got it as you've been working with GenAI. These hallucinations either are just frankly making up information or providing incomplete or wrong answers. And so how do we increase the accuracy to make sure users trust the solution as well as have accurate information at their fingertips? The gap from POC to production is pretty wide. Doing POCs is easy, but being able to run and host a GenAI application in production where you have many concurrent users asking these questions and you need to make sure that that accuracy stays stable is truly hard to do. And we have a fragmented ecosystem. As soon as the AI hype took place, we have seen a huge explosion of AI tools, AI companies, components, and trying to sift through what's real and what's not. It's tough for our customers. Now, I mentioned that gap, that hard to cross gap. That's where we are really focusing on helping our customers, is how do you go from POC to production? How do we bring our skill set and our expertise to help you and your team make sure you can confidently get through that gap? Now, it's all about bringing AI apps with accuracy at any scale. Having that production, massive scale experience, massive scale application is where we shine, and having accuracy with your vector search, graph RAG, the different types of vectors you can run into. AI is all based upon that accuracy you can output. Now let's talk about just this velocity to production really quick. Great example is our customer Wikimedia, where with Langflow, we have helped them reduce dev time, and we've helped them to get to that point of production much more quickly. And that's what you're going to be learning today, is how to use Langflow. Now, Langflow can help not only with iterating through the POC, but also measuring your accuracy as you go, allowing you to hot swap between different models so you can find the right model that's either helping embed your data to get those accurate responses, or the foundation model that's been trimmed down to get you the most efficient responses. Now, we make it really easy with these components that are going to be drag and drop. We're going to provide seamless integration across the different hyperscalers and different tools that you would know and want when you are building your AI application. And of course, we have integrations galore. We're going to be focusing on Azure OpenAI and our Azure-based integrations today. But if you want to try your hand at any of our other integrations based on where your data is, give it a try. Also, getting further from just chat completion, Langflow is the best place for you to build your multi-agent applications. And so having these components and being able to see from a visual perspective how these agents are interacting with each other, what their roles are, and the actions that they're going to take, Langflow can be your place for building your agents. Now, how do we bring that accurate AI at any scale? Don't trust us, trust our customers that have been doing this and taking their production applications to market. Now, it's all about having relevant retrieval. That accuracy score, you may have heard something called an F1 score. The F1 score is based on the accuracy of the output you should have got when you're asking a specific prompt. And so having the large language model find and retrieve the right data is dependent on many different things, such as the indexing solution you're using. And in the end, it's all about providing an accurate, extensible knowledge layer, making sure that your data is discoverable and exposed to AI in a way that it can work with it in the most accurate way possible. And that's what we're here to help you do, is build that knowledge layer for your application. That knowledge layer is more than vector search. There are many different types of ways that you can build retrieval. There are different types of vectors, so sparse, like keyword match, and dense, which is semantic. You could be using your graph or graph APIs to do graph RAG, and then also hybrid search, where you're bringing a couple of those things together. As I mentioned, we deliver your knowledge layer. That's what Langflow is here to do. Now, not all vector databases are the same. And of course, I'm going to stand up here and say ours is the best, and I'm going to show you why. You're going to get to use it with Langflow because Astra DB is directly integrated into Langflow. So it makes it really easy for you to work with your data. Now, of course, you can use other databases, but Astra DB should be the heart of your GenAI application. It can work with both unstructured, structured data. You're going to be using our free tier today to kick the tires. And there's a bunch of other features within Astra DB that we have been innovating on, from the index all the way to the compression, all the things that you're going to want to love about a vector database as you move into production. Now, we have the best relevance scores with our vector database. We have the highest performance thanks to our index with JVector, and we are also the most efficient as we have been innovating in the compression. And when we are efficient, that means you get lower costs on your cloud bill. So how do we give you the highest value for the lowest cost? That's what we've been working on. One database to rule them all. Any of your data, any types of your data, any ways that you want to retrieve your data, we can fulfill that. And we are one of the only players that can work across this spectrum here. And again, you don't have to believe us. You can look at Forrester, the latest Forrester Wave report. You can see us squarely in the leader quadrant. And we have just been thrilled, of course, to get this type of recognition, and also why we have been so bullish on telling our customers they can trust working with Astra DB. So what about our partnership with Microsoft? So DataStax on Azure. Using Langflow and all of our tooling, you can build your production AI application all in one platform, run on the cloud we all know and love. And so with Azure, everybody loves its security and its scale. And so that's the partnership we love to bring together. We've made these integrations seamless for you with the tooling within Azure. And finally, it's a partnership you can trust. Don't believe me? You can listen to Scott Guthrie, Executive Vice President at Microsoft, as well as go check out our website on DataStax on Azure. Again, we are really focused on bringing Microsoft's cutting edge models. We want to be the most relevant as well as the most efficient and secure when you're moving those applications to production. We've got tons of integrations from GitHub Copilot, Semantic Kernel, Azure Functions, one of my favorites, Power Query, as well as Azure Arc for those customers that have hybrid environments. I'm excited to announce that we will have Fabric Open Mirroring coming this year. We announced this late last year at Ignite, as well as the .NET SDK coming soon. So for all you .NET lovers out there, we're going to have that development kit for you. You can also find us on the Azure Marketplace. If you have a Mac, Astra DB can help decrement your Mac. We also have programs and funding to help you get to POC as well as POC to production. And we've got special credits to provide customers as well that are going from production to expanding their first workload with us. If you need help with getting started on Azure Marketplace for $1,000, we're going to double your credits. We're also going to provide you 24/7 support for helping you get from POC to production. You can reach out to our HVM team right there. The email is below, and we'll get back to this again later. Okay, let's get set up for the workshop. Looks like we're right on time. So really quickly, bird's eye view as to what we are going to be doing today. You're going to build your first end-to-end GenAI app here on Langflow. Now, when you're working with tools similar like ChatGPT, it all works off prompts or questions. And what's happening behind the scenes is that data that you're working with, that you want to expose to the customer in their answer in some way, you've taken that data, you've embedded it with an embedding model, you've turned it into vector data, brought it to that vector database, and then that data can be used when processing a response. And so that's how Retrieval-Augmented generation works behind the scenes, where you can have a separation between your private data and the large language model and the pre-trained data that the LLM has. So that does not mean that the large language model is being trained on the data that's being held here in your vector database. It is separate to that. The large language model has already been trained on knowledge that it has, and what you're doing is you're augmenting its knowledge that it has with your private data to provide accurate responses on exactly your content and the context that you want it to have. So just walking through the steps, what we're going to be doing is creating embeddings from your data. So what I used is my LinkedIn profile or LinkedIn resume. You can go and download your LinkedIn resume right off LinkedIn if you want to use that as your private data or your PDF that we're going to be using today. Then once that data has been vectorized and embedded, the large language model is going to be looking across that data to provide that response. Those search results are combined with the user prompt to finally get an answer. And if you want, as soon as we're done with your application, Langflow allows you to package up your application and your flow to an API and embed it directly in your application. So we make it super easy to go from Langflow to production. Okay, here again are all the links you need. So make sure you've got your Astra sign up, that you have access to Azure AI Foundry, you have your workshop material, and if you'd like, you can have the slides as well. So while we wait for that, I'm going to get my Langflow up. So here are the two tabs you should have open and logged in. It could be here in Astra DB or go to Langflow. It's really easy to switch between these two studios. And then you should also have AI Foundry up. Now, when you log into AI Foundry, it may look like this. You may not have any hubs or projects. We've got the steps for how to set up your hub as well as a project in the workshop material. But I've already got one set up for here. We've got our Azure workshop project. And we will refer back to this in just a minute. All right, everybody should be on the Langflow page. Now we're going to do some of the easier portions together. And then when we get to the more long-winded portion, you're going to watch me do it. And I'm going to go very quickly end to end so you guys can have a chance to see what it looks like finished. And then you can take time on your own, just so then we're not having to wait and stumble as people are working through it, given the time constraints we have. Okay? So first thing I'm going to do, I've got my project. I'm going to go to a new flow. And I just want to start blank. Let's just start from scratch. Okay, if this is your first time working with Langflow, some things to familiarize yourself with are the canvas. Right here is our canvas. On the left are all the components. I like being able to just search for the components and getting what I need. So use the search function. Here on the right, you'll see that it's grayed out, but this is the playground where we get to test and work with a pre-built agent to see, how is our flow working. And then finally, the API that can package the flow and ship it to your application. In the top left, you're going to have your directory of organizations, which typically you just have one, unless you have more. And then next to that is how you can toggle between Langflow and Astra DB. So think of Langflow as the top level where we're building on top of our vector database, and Astra DB is when we can go down into the data layer, see what data we've brought in, look at the collections and the databases that we have available. Okay, let's just start with right here in that blank flow. So the first thing I'm going to do is very easily get an input and an output and just show you the basics of bringing two things together. Okay, so now that lit up my playground, I can go to the playground, and what do you guys expect to see? If I say, what, can you explain the sun to me? What's it going to do? It's going to say exactly what I inputted. My input is directly being passed to my output, and that's what we are getting. Now, that's cool and all, but that's not exactly what we're here for. We want to bring GenAI into the mix, right? Now, the way you can delete these connections is if you click it, it'll turn purple, and then hit delete on your keyboard, and all of a sudden it is deleted, right? Now we want to get that ChatGPT-like experience. Let's put some knowledge in the middle. If I here go to search and go to Azure OpenAI, now there's models and embeddings. Right now we just want to use the foundation model. We want to use the pre-trained knowledge of that Azure OpenAI model to help us do that output and that completion based on the questions we want. So I'm going to move this here. Zoom out a little bit for you guys. Okay, now I'm going to connect my input to the input, and here are the message output to the chat output. Now you'll see a bunch of other variables here that I need to fill out. Variables that are going to be important are the Azure endpoint, the deployment name, and the API key. Now you're wondering, where do I get those things? That's where Azure AI Foundry comes in. I'm going to swap over to my AI Foundry tab. When you are on AI Foundry, and if you haven't spun up any models, we're going to quickly do that. But right now, I already have some models and endpoints. So when I click on this, it's going to show me my list of models that I have. Okay. Now, let me show you how easy it is to deploy one on your own so you can get your keys and finish the workshop. When I click on deploy, what I'm going to want is GPT-4o. You'll see a bunch of options. The one you want to go with is GPT-4o. That's the chat completion model here. This all looks good to me. And I am going to confirm right here. It's going to ask me some questions, and it's also going to ask me the deployment name. I'm just going to add workshop to this just so I know, but you can name this whatever you want. Just make sure you note that deployment name because you're going to use it again. It's going to come up with all your hub and project deployment details. You can customize these if you want, but right now I just want to use what's already there. I'm going to click deploy, and voila, I now have a model I can work with. Things to know are here you've got your endpoint. So that endpoint you can copy really quickly and easily there. And then you're also going to have your key. And you can copy that right there. So deployment name here on the left that we just configured, endpoint, key. These are the three core pieces you're going to need. Now, not only are we going to need the GPT-4o model, you're going to need something to do embeddings with, which is what's going to embed your private data. So I'm going to go to deploy base model. I'm going to go text/embedding. And the one we're going to use today is text embeddings 3 small. I'm going to click that, click confirm. I'm going to add workshop to the end. Standard, great, everything looks great. We're going to deploy here. And voila, now I have my embedding model. Okay, now that we've got those, let's go back and we want to use the GPT-4o model. Okay, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to copy my endpoint and go back to Langflow, paste the endpoint. Let's get the deployment name right here. I am then going to get the key. Make sure I copied the key. There we go. Paste it here. And voila. Now, when I go to the playground and ask that question, can you explain the sun to me? You can see the flow run. This is where we cue the Jeopardy music. Hope something's working in the background. It's thinking about it. Still thinking. And there we are. Came up with a very comprehensive answer to the sum. Okay. Now, it did that all instantaneously. Later in this workshop, I'm going to show you how to be able to stream that response. Sitting there and waiting for the answer sometimes isn't the best experience, and just getting it all in one shot. But we can see it's working. We can see the model is working. My keys are working. Everything is working, right? So we've got the foundation model rock solid. Okay, I'm just going to very quickly look over to the chat and questions we may have so far. I see questions on blockchain, which we won't cover until Q&A. Let's see what else we got in the chat. Yes, recordings will be shared. We will be, hopefully you're doing this part hands-on, but with the workshop material, you can do this completely on your own. And I see somebody saying, is this slow? Now, again, while we were waiting there for the flow to run, it was putting together all of the answer all in one and delivering it. We can make this faster, obviously, but we are working on our free tier as well as the free tier of the model. And I'll show you how you can stream this data to have just more quicker experience later on in this workshop. So hang in there with me. We're in the very beginnings of this, okay? All right, so let us go to the next section. Okay, now what we're gonna do is to make your life easier. As you're using Langflow more and more, you're gonna wanna make variables so you don't have to like copy and paste everything every time. So what you can do is here on these globe icons, on the Azure endpoint, I am gonna create a new variable. I'm gonna name it Azure endpoint. I am going to get my endpoint here, copy it. And I am going to save this variable. Sweet, so now I can just very easily toggle over to it. Now, what I can do is I can go here to controls. Now, for all those that are saying, oh, that was a little slow, well, what we could do is stream that data in the chat and you can see the model working in real time. So I just toggled that on, okay? Now let's close this. Let's go back to the playground and let's ask the same question. Now it just streamed that versus gave it all in one block. Great. Okay, well now how do we bring more curated experiences for this output? Such as I want to embed a prompt that's invisible to the end user, and I want to provide some instructions on how I want these responses to be done. So what we're going to do next is, as I zoom out, I'm going to bring in a prompt. So I search for prompt, bring in the prompt piece. I'm going to delete this connection here. Move this over here. Now I'm going to connect my input. Actually, I'm going to put your input here. First thing I'm going to do is go to the template. And I want it to explain everything to me like I'm 5 years old, because sometimes I can act like a 5-year-old. So I just pasted this directly from the workshop material. Answer the user as if you were speaking to a 5-year-old. And I've got a variable here is my user input, and then provide the answer. Now I'm going to check that and save that. Once I've checked it and saved it, I can now connect my chat input to the user input here. Okay, so this is what it should look like. Now let's see what how my answer changes. I'm going to get the same exact question. Can you explain the sun to me? Put it in the message. Flow is running. Cue the Jeopardy music. Great. Look at that. I got the answer in the way that I wanted to by putting in that prompt to help direct the foundation model in how I want it to respond. And it's calling me a kiddo. Sweet. All right, well, let's take this a bit further. This is pretty simple. We were just using the foundation model, and now we want to be able to bring in your data. Created just a simple chatbot here, where we brought in Azure OpenAI, and we also included a prompt here that had responses explain as if we were 5. Now, going to the playground, we went from, hey, can you tell us about the sun, to this long-winded scientific answer, to something very simple for a 5-year-old. Now, what I plan to use for my private data is my resume. I downloaded it from LinkedIn. So let's see if it knows who I am. Say, what is Greg Petrosian's current job? Let's see if it knows, or if it just makes something up. That's the right answer. Doesn't know. Okay. Well, we can stop this. Okay. And so I've proven to you that this Azure OpenAI Foundation model doesn't know who I am. Shocker. Okay, now let's go back to my project and let's create a new flow. And we're going to use a template. So we're going to use a template. As you can see here, you can go and browse all the other templates available. We are going to do vector store RAG. So this is where you want to load your data for chat context with retrieval-augmented generation. That's exactly what we want to do. So I'm going to click that. All right, so it's preloaded a bunch of components that are already wired up. And we're going to go through and check and see what we like, what we don't like, and change things up. Now, one thing you'll notice is we've got OpenAI here, both for the embedding and the foundation model. Now, this is the beauty of Langflow. You can very quickly and easily swap out models and model providers, and you can test and you can iterate. So although this template has OpenAI in it, and I want Azure OpenAI, it's going to be super simple to change out, okay? So another thing to mention is when we're looking at the canvas, we see there are 2 flows. Why do we have 2 flows? The bottom flow is where we are loading data. We're taking our file here, then I'm going to bring my LinkedIn profile. We're going to split the text, we're going to chunk it, and we're going to embed it with the embedding model into our Astra DB vector database, okay? At the top flow is our retrieval flow. This is kind of like what you just saw earlier with the foundation model and the chat feature, but now what we have is the output getting the data from the vector database, the input going from the vector database, hitting the foundation model, and then providing that chat output. Now we could also, if we want, add that prompt where it explain everything like I'm 5, but we're just going to skip that for now. And we will get to the retrieval flow after we do our embeddings. Okay, so what do we do here? First, let's get the file we want. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to get my profile here. Great, here's my profile PDF. Everything here with split text is great. I want to remove the OpenAI embeddings, and I am going to delete this. Now, one thing I want to show you is there's 2 ways to do this. I can either go to Azure OpenAI and get the embedding component, fill all this in, connect it to the embeddings, and then run this flow. But we're going to go one step ahead, and we're actually going to do something a little bit more slick. We are going to integrate the embedding model with the vector database. So then anytime we're bringing data, it's just automatically knowing which embedding model to use and vectorize the data, okay? And one thing you'll notice is when I click on here, there are no databases. So we need to go create a database, and we're going to go integrate that embedding model all together. So up here in the top left, I'm going to click this, and this is where you can toggle between Langflow and Astra DB, the data layer. So let's go to the data layer. Okay, here you can see I've got no tricks up my sleeve. We have a free plane here. I'm on the same plane as you most likely. I've got no databases, and we are ready to rock. So first thing I'm going to do is go and let's create a database. I want the serverless vector, perfect. We're going to call this Azure Workshop. We are going to pick our friend here, Microsoft Azure, and we are going to pick the region that is available, and the only region available, West US 3. Okay, and now we are ready to create that database. All right, it's going to be initializing. Now, one thing to remember is we must wait for this to initialize and be ready to go before we go and integrate Azure OpenAI. So we're going to give this a few minutes. We're going to cue Jeopardy, play whatever song you like in your head. And here on the left, you'll notice the color is yellow. As it's initializing, it should turn to green once it's ready. So we'll give this a moment. Still initializing. Gonna take a few more minutes. While we wait, I'm going to hop over here to AI Foundry, and we're going to go to our embedding models. And I want to show you something that's going to be important when we go to do the integration, as well as using the embedding model. Now, you are going to find that we used our endpoint, our key, as well as the deployment name here, which is also called the deployment ID. But one thing we didn't go over is the resource name. Your resource name can be found very simply here between the HTTPS and the .openai, or if you want to hit the edit, you'll be able to see that same string here on the connected Azure OpenAI service resource, and you can go ahead copy that as well. Let's go back and let's see if our vector database is ready. Awesome. All right, so Azure Workshop has been set up. Great. Now, what we want to do is now we want to go to integrations. You can see we've got a ton of integrations for embedding providers, but we want the Azure OpenAI embedding provider. So I'm going to go and add this integration. I'm going to click here, and we're going to go to add integration. Okay, it's going to ask for our API key name. This is just a way to distinguish what API you are using. So I'm going to say text embedding 3 small. I'm going to go get my API key. Copy that here. I'm going to add database to scope, which is the Azure Workshop. And I'm going to say this looks great to me. We're going to add this integration. And you'll see here it goes active. Cool. So now let's go back to the database and let's see, okay, there's no data here, right? But to be able to bring that unstructured data into the vector database, we have to create what's called a collection. So when I click on create collection, I'm going to call this Azure Workshop Collection. I want to make sure it uses the Azure OpenAI embedding model. And then it's going to ask me some questions. Yes, we're using text embedding 3. Now let's go get the resource name. Here is the resource name. I'm going to get the deployment ID, which is also the deployment name. That could trip you up. Sometimes it trips me up. Then I'm like, okay, let's read the subtext. So let's get the deployment name. And then also we want to make the similarity metric dot product. Okay, so check you've got everything here just like this. And we are going to create collection. Jeopardy music cued again. I'll just quickly explain again that this collection is where you're going to have collection of unstructured data living. It's like a shell. And this is what we are going to be bringing my LinkedIn profile data into once it's vectorized. Okay, so the collection is done. Now I can go and let's toggle back to Langflow. Our data layer is ready to rock. We've got our vector database, we've got our collection, and we have our embedding model, right? So let's go here to Vector Store RAG, which was the project I was working on. Okay, let's go click in. Let's go to our load data. So this all looks good. We took out the OpenAI embedding model, and we're not going to need to add that component, the Azure OpenAI embedding model, because it's already built in to our database. Okay, so let's go here and let's select Azure Workshop. Let's select our collection that we want to bring the data into. And you'll see I don't have an embedding dot to connect in because it already knows that we have an embedding model ready to go. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to click Run Component. We've got green checks. That means the data's in the door and we're ready to go. Okay, so, and I can prove that to you. If we jump over to Astra DB, and now when we go to the database, and I go to Data Explorer, I can see that we've got data in there. Cool, and this is from my resume. So let's go back to Langflow. Let's go back to the project we're in. Now let's do the retrieval flow. Okay, so we've got the chat input. We don't need to do an embedding here, so I'm going to delete this. We're going to want to use our database. Let's see, for some reason I'm not seeing our database, so we're going to see it over here. First, we're going to delete this as well because we want to bring in Azure OpenAI. Delete, let's find the foundation model we want to use. Here we go. I'm going to take this prompt message, add it to my input. I'm going to take chat output. I'm going to link that guy up as well. Let's see, that's still there. Okay, let's see if this saved. I'm going to give this a refresh to see if that changes anything. Okay. Yep. Let's go reload. Interesting. Well, since we already ingested that data, we are just going to ignore that since we already ingested the data. Because there's no ingestion here. It's just looking for the input. Okay, so this is fine. There's nothing you need to select there. We've got parse data. We've got the prompt here. And you can see in the prompt, I didn't add the explain like I'm 5. It's just give us the best possible answer. okay? So that we're gonna keep that all good. Now let's fill out the foundation model. I'm gonna delete this little thing there, okay? Let's get our Azure endpoint. So I'm gonna go back, go into GPT 4.0. Let's just use this one. I'm gonna grab the key. I'm gonna get the deployment in. And I'm going to get the endpoint here. Okay, I'm going to press play just to make sure this all works. It's telling me it's missing something. Okay, so what I did is I clicked on the database and I was able to refresh list. And now we are able to see the workshop. Fantastic. All right, now we can hit play again. Of course, now it's got the collection. Okay. Now we have everything going. Let's hit play. Great, great. We've got green check marks. The last one, it's just spinning. I'm less concerned about the chat output not working because we've got everything else good. So let's see if we can just go to the playground. I guess I must wait. All right, now that we have all the green check marks, we can go to the playground. And it tells me a little bit about the document. That was just the output when we ran that last flow. So I'm going to say, what is Greg Petrosian's current job? And so now it's going to pull from the knowledge it knows, as well as the private data PDF that I provided, and it should be able to provide us an answer. We cue the Jeopardy music. Great. Here's my current job roles. Information didn't know before. Now that we've brought that data, and it can respond with retrieval-augmented generation against that data. Voila. And just like that, we have built our first end-to-end RAG application with Langflow. I'm just going to very quickly mention a few more things. If you want to learn more about DataStax and Astra DB on Azure, you can go check us out on our website, and you can go see all the integrations and different news we have of what we're innovating with Microsoft. I'd also like to mention our starter pack, where if you'd like to have a team join you in helping build your POC and taking it to production, for $1,000, you get a whole team around you. And we have this deal running through the end of the month. You can reach out to our team at hvm-global@datastax.com. And with that, we will go to questions. So let's go to the Q&A. Let's see. How do you use the directory node to load files recursively instead of one-to-one? One cloud option. So rather than using the Langflow flow, I mean, using the Langflow flow of ingesting data is just a very simple way to do it via the Visual IDE. If you want to have more sophisticated data ingestion, as well as um, a larger volume of data, you're going to be using the API for that. So, and you can work through that, creating that data pipeline via the API. Now I'm also seeing a question, can you provide details on Langflow security measure and compliance with government standards? Now that depends on how you are using Langflow. Now you can go to our Trust Center for DataStax to see our SOC 2, our PCI compliance, all of our security compliance, but Langflow here is what we were running on was on Azure. And so that's where you defer to Azure security. Now, we don't have this in Microsoft Azure's government cloud, if that's what you're asking, GCC. This is just available on commercial cloud, but Langflow is open source. You can choose to deploy your own iteration of Langflow within the government cloud, wherever you like. See another question, what are you trying to achieve the objective of this project? What we were trying to achieve earlier was bringing our private data that Azure OpenAI didn't know about me, Greg, and my resume. I wanted to bring my resume and ground that response from Azure OpenAI to provide responses around who it was in my experiences, if I could have got it to embed my resume. But again, we will host this webinar again. Hopefully I'll be in better luck with the demo gods then. What is the difference between LangChain and Langflow? So LangChain is what Langflow is based on. LangChain is what you can use to do that kind of chaining methodology of your different models, being able to swap them. But what Langflow is bringing a step above what LangChain does and providing that visual connect, drag, drop features, as well as preloaded integrations. LangChain you typically have to work with if you are a pro code type person and know how to code. Langflow needs no coding experience. See another question around embedding providers, such as Pinecone's embedding service. Doesn't matter what embedding provider you want to use, we should have that option there in a component. It may not be in an integration, but definitely as a component. I'm seeing CRUD functions to the blockchain via the API. I believe we had a way of building like an Ethereum Explorer with Astra, but doing CRUD functions like updates to the blockchain via an API, that is a little out of scope. That seems like a very distinct application. Now, if you're trying to bring a GenAI experience to your blockchain app, if that's what you're trying to ask, that would be done at the web application GUI level. We do have some plans to bring in some blockchain providers of models. I'm not going to give it away as to who and how, but that is something we're working on. And then also seeing another question on the application being blockchain related. Again, we're not here working with the blockchain, we're working with a vector database. Okay, I'm going to swap back to the chat. Okay. Now we actually made it on time. I will very quickly again go back to our slide on the survey. If you guys have time to wrap that survey up, make sure you have access to the material and my slides so you can go through this and hopefully be successful on your own. If not, feel free to reach out to us. Happy to make ourselves available to get your flow to run. And hopefully I'll do this again and be more successful in the future But really appreciate y'all for being on, for taking the time with us. We really appreciate the fact that you have chosen us to get to learn with us around retrieval-augmented generation, as well as our amazing tool, Langflow. So hopefully you're going to take Langflow and use it for one of your projects to POC on and show and demonstrate the value of a GenAI experience. Awesome, thank you.